Have you ever heard of a story where the one tested turned out to be purer, stronger, and more faithful than the one who set the trap? Well, sit tight, because what I'm about to share with you is not just a story, it's a journey into the heart of trust, betrayal, and redemption. It all began in a sprawling mansion on the edge of the city. Its owner was a man named Victor Harland, a self-made millionaire who had built his empire from the ground up. He was respected in the business world for his brilliance and feared for his sharpness. But beneath the layers of wealth and power was a man haunted by mistrust. Victor didn't trust easily, not his business partners, not his friends, and certainly not the people who worked for him. This distrust came from his past, scarred by betrayal after betrayal. Years ago, his best friend had stolen a business idea from him, costing him millions. Later, an ex-fiancé had left him when his company faced temporary financial trouble, running off with another man. Each wound closed with a scar, until Victor built walls so high around his heart that no one could climb them. But there was one person who seemed to chip away at those walls, even without meaning to. Her name was Elena. Elena was his maid, a quiet woman in her late 30s with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor. She wasn't like the others who had come and gone from the mansion. She worked diligently, never complained, and seemed to treat his home as if it were her own. While others often whispered about his wealth or peeked curiously at his possessions, Elena worked with a sense of respect and gratitude. Yet, despite her loyalty, Victor's suspicions lingered. He often watched her from the corner of his eye, when she dusted near his office, when she passed by the shelves lined with expensive antiques, or when she carried out the trash past the garage where his luxury cars gleamed. She never faltered, never took a second glance, never lingered too long. Still, Victor's mind wouldn't rest. Everyone has a price, he muttered to himself one evening as he poured himself a glass of scotch. I'll find out hers. That's when he came up with a plan. Victor decided to set a trap. He would leave his safe, the one hidden in his study, slightly open. Inside were stacks of cash, expensive jewelry, and important documents. Enough temptation for anyone to fall. He wanted to see if Elena's kindness was real, or if, like so many others, it was only a mask. The next morning, he left for work earlier than usual but not before unlocking the safe, leaving it ajar just enough to reveal the glitter of gold and cash. He set up a hidden camera in the study, positioned perfectly to capture Elena's every move. His heart raced as he closed the door behind him, muttering, "Let's see who you really are, Elena." Elena arrived as always, carrying her small bag, her hair tied back neatly, and her face calm but a little tired. She had two jobs, one at Victor's mansion and another cleaning offices late at night. Her life was not easy, but she never complained. As she moved through the house, dusting, sweeping, and humming softly to herself, she eventually made her way into the study. Victor, watching from his office through the live camera feed, leaned closer to the screen. Elena set her cleaning supplies down. She dusted the desk, wiped the shelves, and then her eyes fell on the safe. She froze. Victor's heart pounded. "This is it," he whispered. Elena walked toward the safe slowly. She stared at it for a long moment, the bundles of cash practically calling her name. She sighed deeply and then, she closed the safe. Victor blinked. What? But Elena didn't stop there. She pulled out a small piece of paper from her pocket, scribbled something quickly, and slipped it under the safe. Then she picked up her supplies and left the study, her steps steady, her expression unreadable. Victor immediately ended his workday early. He rushed home, his hands trembling as he reached for the note. On it, in Elena's neat handwriting, were words that pierced his heart. Victor sank into his chair, tears filling his eyes. He had set a trap, expecting betrayal, but instead, he found honesty, loyalty, and integrity far beyond what money could buy. The next day, Victor called Elena into his study. She entered nervously, wondering if she had done something wrong. But instead of anger, she found Victor standing by the safe, his eyes red, his demeanor softer than she had ever seen. "Elena," he began, his voice shaky, "I owe you an apology. I doubted you. I thought you might steal from me. So I left this safe open on purpose." Elena's eyes widened, but she stayed silent. "But instead of taking anything, you protected what wasn't yours. You reminded me of something I had forgotten long ago, that goodness still exists. That trust is still possible." His voice cracked. "You left me in tears, Elena. And I don't cry easily. For the first time in years, Victor felt his heart break open, not from betrayal, but from the overwhelming realization that kindness had survived in the world he had long considered cold and heartless. From that day forward, everything changed. Victor began to treat Elena not just as an employee but as a valued member of his household. He learned about her struggles, how she worked 2 jobs to provide for her teenage son, Daniel, who dreamed of becoming a doctor. He discovered that every penny she earned went toward his education and their modest rented home. Victor, moved beyond words, decided to help. Quietly, he paid for Daniel's school fees and even offered Elena a better salary. But more than the money, what truly transformed Victor was Elena's reminder that not everyone was out to take advantage of him. Slowly, he began to trust again, his staff, his business partners, and even himself. Years later, Daniel graduated at the top of his class and went on to medical school. On the day of his graduation, Victor sat proudly beside Elena, cheering for the boy who had once been just a story to him. When Daniel gave his speech, he thanked 2 people, his mother for her endless sacrifices, and Mr. Harland, who taught me that trust and kindness can change lives. The audience erupted in applause, but Victor sat quietly, tears streaming down his face once more. He thought back to that single day, that single test, that single note left under the safe, and realized it had changed his life forever. So, my friends, what's the lesson here? Sometimes, the people we test are the very ones who will teach us the greatest lessons. And sometimes, the richest treasures in life are not the gold or the money we guard so tightly, but the honesty, loyalty, and kindness of those around us. Victor learned that, and maybe it's time we remember it too.